Today we're going to talk about water. As you can see, the water supply is definitely something I've got sussed. And these days it's 100% rainwater. So, in this episode I want to talk about my water supply here, how I work it, how easy it was to set up and how cheap it is to run. And well, I'll tell you, it's pretty easy to set up and it costs next to nothing to run. I'll just go over how it came to, how the system evolved, and then we'll actually have a look around it as well. I'll show you a diagram of how it works, and then I'll try and film some of the actual bits of equipment in situ. So I didn't always have a good water system here by any means. When I first moved here, pretty much all the water had to come from my work in town. I used to bring it home in jerry cans in the car. If I wanted to use a washing machine, and I do consider a washing machine to be a necessity of life, even in off-grid situations, I'd have to save up for a few days and then blow all that water in one go just to clean my clothes. So it was hard work, to be honest. I was always looking for an alternative. There's no stream running through the property. I couldn't afford a borehole, and mains just wasn't an option. The main supply is just too far and it would cost me too much to get it here. I had an old man came out to do some divining, which was interesting. He spent ages here, eventually ended up right on top of the hill and announced excitedly that he'd found a water supply. He'd found a good, strong underground stream. He said it's just 50 foot down. I'm like, brilliant, 50 foot for a loose shale. Well, that's, you know, I'm not going to do it. I did dig a well. I got a map from the water board which showed locations of springs along the valley here, and by working out those locations of springs I assessed out there's a shelf of rock. So the water comes down through the hill above me, through the top of the valley, and then it hits this shelf all along the valley and pops out as seasonal springs. So I dug down to that shelf of rock, or almost to that shelf of rock, and I did get a well of sorts. It was seasonal and it was pink, bright pink stuff came out of it. And a little badger fell in it, poor chap. I got some footage somewhere. If I find it, I'll insert it here. He was alright. I washed him off, gave him some frankfurters and sent him on his way. But it wasn't really a goer. Right, and just in case it's of any interest to anybody that might be thinking of digging a well, here's how it worked conceptually. So if you've got your well here, which I tried to dig as a shaft and it sort of ended up more like that. So you've got your water there at the bottom. Then the idea was to drop in a pipe, so some twin wall pipe, and then in the pipe goes a pump. So here's the, and then backfill this lot, so that gets filled in, and then the water comes out up there and eventually it ends up, because it's quite silty and it had lots of clay in it, I made a slow sand filter. So I got a big plastic barrel and I filled it about that much with clean big gravel and then some coarse sand and then a load of fine sand. And this went into a catchment tank underneath. So the water goes in here, and it was a batch system, so you'd fill up this space, and the water would trickle through, and then you'd end up with clean water here. And then you can pump that off through a pump here, off to the barn. or wherever I was living at the time. Then once I got the barn built, all my problems were over basically. There's enough roof space to collect the rainwater, and once you do some simple things with the rainwater, you can use it for whatever you like. Possibly the easiest way to try and explain how the rainwater capture and filtration system works here is to draw a diagram. I found these photos of when I built the barn, which might help illustrate it as well. So you can see here the pitch of the roof is quite steep, and that's deliberate. That's because I wanted the rain to hoof it down into the gutters as quickly as possible. On top of these roof boards, I put this box profile steel sheet, and again that was a choice. Part of the reason for choosing this was that the rain would rush down it and into the gutters. So if we draw the other end, not this end of the barn but the other end, which is now the kitchen end, looks something like this. So here's my kitchen, this is where we're sat at the moment. So we're sat in here somewhere, here's the roof space, and the gutters come down the front. So there's a gutter down here with as much pitch to the gutter as I could get to, again, speed the rain down, and it squeals around that corner and comes along here, and there's the other gutter of course comes around the back here. They meet, they go into a big plastic barrel. And there's a bucket here, and the bucket is the first filter. It's just a builder's bucket stuck in the top of this 1500 litre container, and in the bucket is a mosquito net. It's basically what you put over your hat when you go to the jungle. It cost me about £2 off of eBay. So that goes there, and that filters out all the leaves and lumpy stuff like that. So this then fills up with water, and the water is taken out of here. There's a hose that goes down to about there. You don't want the hose all the way to the bottom or you'll pick up the sediment. So once or twice a year I might clean this out, so I just empty it. I've got other tanks as well. When I had the family living with me, I bought a load of IBCs, which are they call it intermittent bulk containers, and they carry 1,000 litres each in a sort of square cage. So if I want to, I can clean one of these out, dump the water into there, clean this out, dump the water back, and so on. Anyway, the water comes out, and then it goes in the back of the kitchen. In the utility room is a little 12-volt pump. That pump goes to a manifold here, and the manifold goes to a ceramic filter, and the ceramic filter goes to a tap, and it also goes to the tap in the bathroom. The other connection from the manifold goes up, and it goes into, eventually, into a cold water tank up here, as high as I could get it in the roof space, and that cold water tank feeds into a hot water tank which is there, and that feeds into the bath and shower and down to the hot tap in the kitchen. So fresh water that I want to drink, when I turn on the tap it activates the pump, because the pump is a pressure sensitive pump, and that drags water from the tank through the pump. There's a coarse filter here as well. So through that filter, and then through the ceramic filter, and then out the tap, and you can drink it. When I turn on the hot tap, well, without drawing it all in, the hot tap pulls water from the hot water tank, and then that is constantly filled up by the cold water tank. Hot water will be explained in another episode. I think I'll do that when I do the heating, because that all goes together much better. So that's a sort of simple overview of where it's at. I've found that when I had the family living with me, I got some more of these, and I ended up with 7,000 litres of storage, and I never needed anywhere near that. Currently I've got this big 1,500 litre tank outside. I've got another one outside the workshop, and that's more than enough for me, and that's with having as many baths as I like, using the jet wash, watering the garden, washing machine, you name it, I use it without any thought of rationing, and it's all hunky-dory. So these are now redundant. I should probably convert them to be more firewood storage. Right, that's an overview of that, I think. Let's see if we can film some stuff in situ. So here you should be able to see the steep pitch of the roof. The fact that it's steel box section helps as well. It stays cleaner, I think, than clay tiles would. I even noticed the pitch of the guttering is popping as sharply as I can get it to this corner. And it goes this way. We're a bit wobbly because we're standing on top of the outdoor bath at the moment. So you can see here, one pipe comes along, joins the gutter from the other side, from the back of the barn, and they both come down and they go to that bucket I was describing, and this is the black tank here. It's all just household downpipe and guttering, nothing special at all, and I found even with torrential downpours this is able to cope. Might be able to just make out the IBCs here, which were the auxiliary storage. And when I built my workshop I used a similar construction, and you can see behind the forge here is another one of those black tanks, and I used that one mainly for garden irrigation. So here you should be able to get a slightly better idea of the scale of the backup containers. The reason I chose these four in particular was because they've been used for the storage of food grade olive oil, so I knew that there was nothing terrible in them, and incidentally I got lots of free olive oil out of it. The disadvantage of using a clear container like this is that the water will go green. So what I did, and this is only in the height of summer, in the winter time it's not an issue at all, but in summertime give a few days and this will start to look like a pond inside. So what I did was use the cheapest bleach that you can get, and I would just dose it with that. Now that might horrify a lot of people, but that's just because of a misconception of what's actually going on. If you think there's 1,000 litres in here and you're putting in a cupful of bleach or so, that's really not a great deal in the great scheme of things. The other thing to remember is bleach is very reactive, so it will react away in there. It won't just stay in there as bleach, it will just be busily reacting with the water, and it'll all gas off in a few days. But while it's done that, it's killed all the bugs that are turning things green. So when I announced to the people living here at the time that I was going to start putting bleach in the water, they were perhaps understandably a little concerned, even when I explained the reasoning and the process of it. So this is why I got this kit, and it comes in two types, and this is the more sensitive version, and I think these kits are mainly for testing swimming pools and maybe hot tubs, things like that. Anyway, using this kit, once I dosed the bleach in there, we gave it a couple of days, and then I tested it, and it was about a quarter of the chlorine level that's permissible in tap water. So yeah, had there been 4 times the chlorine level, it still would have been safe to drink. So I would have been happy to drink the water as it was, but just to be on the super safe side, the drinking water was then run through a ceramic filter, a special version of the ceramic filter that filtered out chlorine as well as everything else. And to check that, we checked that after it came out of the tap, the drinking water tap, and sure enough there was 0 detectable chlorine in the water, so that worked a treat. Now I'm just using the black tanks, it's not something I need to worry about at all. The other option would be to get the clear tanks and paint them black, or put them in a shed, something like that, and then you'd probably do alright too. So if you're going to use IBCs, and they're really quite a cheap way of doing rainwater capture, just be a bit wary of where they come from, because some of them have got some pretty undesirable chemicals in. And scrubbing the inside of one of these is hard work. It was, with this one being olive oil, what I did was just use a whole bottle, emptied out as much as possible of the olive oil, and then used a whole bottle of washing up liquid, and sloshed that around as much as possible with a broom that I could squeeze through the top there, and then flushed it out, and just repeated that over and over and over again, and we got clean in the end. But yeah, it was a pretty good option, I think, the olive oil ones. Anyway, you want something that's food grade. Right, back inside. Bit wibbly. Okay, we're in the utility room, and you should be able to see here. Well, first thing you'll notice is that half of the stuff is still made of garden hose, because this is what happens when you do an experimental installation and it works. You tend to leave it alone. At some point I will upgrade this. The reason it works is because it runs at almost no pressure at this part of the system. So here we got the line coming in from the black tank. It goes to this filter here, which is a coarse filter, and that filters down to 5 micron, I think that is, and that's a very cheap disposable filter that I change every 4 to 6 months, I guess, something like that. And then in the corner here we have a 12 volt pump, and it's a pressure pump, so it'll always try and maintain 30 psi, and yeah, I've had that for many years. It's been incredibly reliable. So I got a cheap version of the same thing to begin with, and only got a year out of it. This one's lasted probably 10 years. Oh, there you go, it says 25 psi. And then we just got a it's embarrassingly poor, just a hose lock manifold. This will be changed at some point when I get around to it. And here then, identical filter housing, but this one in here has got the posh ceramic filter. Because that pump is on a pressure switch, the moment I open this tap, the pressure will drop in the system, the pressure switch will engage, and the pump will come on and the water will come out. So listen out for the pump. Now you can hear the pump pulsing in and out, and there's only a trickle of water coming out of here. The reason for that is that the ceramic filter is partially blocked. I haven't cleaned it for a while, and I didn't clean it so I can give you a chance to see how it's done. It's dead simple. Right, let's go and get it. The first thing to do is to put these isolators to the off position, that one and that one. Then there's this gadget here. And we just undo the housing. Bear in mind it will be full of water. And there it is. Right, off to the sink. Okay, so that's it. That's the housing. And this is the ceramic filter. So it's literally a lump of stone. That's pretty much that's pretty much all it is. Except this one has got the special extra filter inside to filter out any chlorine that might be in there, which is now obviously not needed. Right, let's have some. So the cold water won't be working now because I've just turned all that off, obviously. Hot tap still running. So you should just about be able to make out a difference in colour between this bit and this bit. So this bit I've scrubbed, this bit is how it was. So those are just tiny particles of dirt that got through the first filter and then lodged on this one. So this process you have to do whenever it clogs up, and the frequency is always going to depend how much you use it. Personally, I seem to drink a lot more beer than water, so I can get away with a long period between cleaning it. But even when there's a family living here and they drank industrial quantities of squash, I don't think it would need cleaning more than once a month or even a couple of months. And that's it. I'm just using a nail brush there, and that's the best thing I've found for doing it. Something like this, the washing up scouring pad, is too soft. And one of these pan scourers that's made of stainless steel is far too brutal. And that's it. It goes back in there. And then we put it back. It can only go one way up, the righting up. If you put it the other way up, nothing happens, so it's pretty foolproof. Right, moves on. So that's now filling up. There'll be loads of air in the system, obviously, because that air that was in there has just been squeezed up somewhere. So we're going to let the air out. The air getting gone. There we go. So you can see there's an improved flow. That's about as much flow as you're going to get with a little pump like the one I've got. But I've never been in a hurry to get my drink of water. I couldn't wait for that to fill. Pump's not usually as loud as that, it's just I've got the door open so you can hear it working. So there we go, lovely clean water. Lots of advantages to using rainwater, of course. It's as soft as it gets, so it means the washing machine works really well. It means the shower works well. There's no limescale in anything. The kettle doesn't get limescale, the shower head doesn't get limescale. There's no lime to scale. This is the water filter that I used. Yeah, these come in all sorts of different types. These are the types on the back here. But if you just go onto eBay and you search for this stuff, Dalton is the manufacturer. So I hope that's been of some use. And yeah, why would anyone pay for their water? When you live in a place like England, like I do, and it just pours from the sky, whether you like it or not, might as well make use of it. So I can use this for drinking, cooking, washing, everything you could think of. Even if I lived in a house and I had clay tiles or concrete tiles on the roof, I'd be tempted to set up something like this, because once it's been through the filter and then through that ceramic filter, that's as clean as you get. That's cleaner than tap water. It's cleaner than most tap water anyway. So yeah, what's not to like? If the system seems a bit complicated, an alternative would be just to have rainwater into tanks like that, a coarse filter, and then you could use it for a washing machine and flushing the toilets. Even that would put a massive dent in your water bill. Anyway, that's enough sermonising for now. Yeah, like I say, hope that's been useful, stroke interesting. I'll cover hot water in, I think, probably the next episode. I'm going to talk about heat and how to heat the home, or how I heat the home, and hot water will be part of that. I think is probably the best way to do that. And yeah, join me for that. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Nice. Not as nice as beer.